Men are so simple and so prone to follow the needs of the moment that he who deceives will always find someone willing to be deceived. Niccolò Machiavelli. Have you ever had the sinking feeling that you weren't living your life for you, but for someone else? That your story was unfolding under someone else's direction, while you played a role you never agreed to? Maybe it was someone close, someone you trusted, a friend, partner. Maybe you didn't see it clearly until much later, when the energy was gone, the silence too loud, and the damage already done. At some point, many of us wake up to the realization that we've been used. Not in dramatic, villainous ways, but subtly, gradually, in ways that make us question our own worth. Because behind the disappointment isn't just betrayal. It's the quiet ache of having hoped we mattered more. Being used doesn't just hurt, it disorients. It leaves behind a residue of confusion, resentment, and a strange hollowness, like being present, but unseen, alive but unheard. And the hardest truth? This isn't rare. It's everywhere. In the workplace, in friendships, even in love. Because not everyone views people as people. Some see people as resources, stepping stones, instruments of their goals. And when your usefulness runs out, so does their attention. Centuries ago, during the height of the Renaissance, a man dared to speak this uncomfortable truth. Niccolò Machiavelli. Often misunderstood, Machiavelli wasn't advocating cruelty. He was diagnosing reality. He didn't argue that people were inherently bad, but that they were reliably self-serving. That in a world driven by desire and power, strategy often trumps sentiment. In The Prince, Machiavelli doesn't instruct us to become ruthless. He urges us to become aware, to remove the blinders, to understand that while we might wish the world was ruled by fairness or empathy, it's often governed by leverage, perception, and survival. He never quite said the ends justify the means, but he walked close to the edge of that idea, not to encourage manipulation, but to reveal how easily we can be manipulated if we're unaware. And perhaps that's the deeper lesson, not to become cold or calculating, but to stop being naive. To Machiavelli, if gaining power required strategy, even if that meant using deception, manipulation, or cruelty, then so be it. What mattered wasn't the method, it was the outcome. And while The Prince was written for rulers centuries ago, his ideas echo far beyond royal courts. They live on in boardrooms, in friendships, in relationships. Because in today's world, power rarely wears a crown. More often, it wears a smile. Sometimes it calls itself a friend. Sometimes it sits across from you, asking for yet another favor. Machiavelli didn't just reveal the tactics of power. He taught us how to recognize when it's being used against us. And more importantly, how to stop playing the role of the pawn. In this video, we're going to explore the harsh wisdom of Machiavelli, not to become cold or unfeeling, but to become aware, to protect your energy, to reinforce your boundaries, and to stop trading your worth for someone else's agenda. 1. Understand that people are self-interested. The first step in protecting yourself is understanding something fundamental. People are, by nature, self-interested. Machiavelli didn't write this with bitterness. He wrote it with clarity. And over time, reality has proven him right. Most people act in alignment with what benefits them, not necessarily out of malice, but out of instinct. Not love, not fairness, not loyalty, just advantage. This doesn't mean everyone you meet is manipulative, but it does mean you should stop assuming that everyone always has good intentions. Not because you're paranoid, because you're aware. Now, Machiavelli would be the first to admit, there are rare people who act with true loyalty and care. But even then, he'd urge caution. Watch not what they say, but what they sacrifice when it's inconvenient. Because anyone can speak loyalty, very few prove it when it costs them something. Here's the deeper danger. Most self-interest hides behind charm, behind flattery, behind gestures that look generous but are really transactional. That's why Machiavelli would advise, ask yourself, why now? What do they stand to gain? Is this genuine or strategic? If their kindness serves a goal, it's not kindness, it's currency. And the more you recognize this, not with resentment, but with clarity, the less you'll fall into the role of the giver who is quietly being drained. You'll stop over-explaining. You'll stop over-giving. You'll start guarding your time, your focus, and your emotional bandwidth. 2. Set and enforce your boundaries. So why do people take advantage of us? Most of the time, it's not because they're malicious. It's because we never said no. We left the door open, and they walked in. Machiavelli observed that many people fail to guard their inner world. They offer up their time, their emotional labor, their energy without limits. They say yes when they want to say no. And so, slowly, they're pulled into other people's problems, priorities, and expectations until they lose sight of their own. But here's the truth. People only take what they're allowed to take. If someone is constantly leaning on you, calling you only when they need something, or playing the victim to gain your attention, it's not just on them. It's on you. You've trained them to expect access. And over time, they begin to control your time, your emotions, your peace, while you shrink into someone who merely reacts. This is why boundaries aren't just nice to have. They're essential. Think of them like a shield. No one goes into battle without one. Your boundaries are that shield. They draw the line between you and the noise. They protect your energy from manipulation, from guilt-tripping, from emotional overreach. And they're not built from resentment. They're built from self-respect. You don't set boundaries because you hate someone. You set them because you finally love yourself enough to protect your time, your energy, and your mental space. Machiavelli would call this strength. The kind of strength that no one hands you. The kind you claim by choosing yourself. Because the hard truth is this: if using you benefits someone, they will, unless you make it clear they can't. And the moment you set a boundary, the pattern breaks. You reclaim your power. You reclaim your peace. And you send a silent but powerful message to the world. I decide where my limits are, not you. And it can start small. The next time someone asks for a favor, pause. Ask yourself, do I genuinely want to do this? Is this a fair ask? Or just another pull in a long pattern of taking? If the answer is no, say no. Say it even if your voice shakes. Say it even if they're disappointed. Say it with calm. Say it with clarity. And most importantly, say it without guilt. You don't owe anyone your time, your energy, or your peace. Especially when the cost is you. Because the moment you start saying no, something shifts. You're not just setting a boundary. You're sending a message that you will no longer be used. That you are not a tool. Not a backup plan. Not a buffer for someone else's chaos. You are a person with limits, with value, with power. And in reclaiming that power, you take the first step back to yourself. 3. Control the image others have of you. Machiavelli taught a sharp truth. Perception shapes reality. The way people treat you, the respect they give, the lines they cross, the effort they invest, comes down to the image you've allowed them to form. If you come across as overly agreeable, endlessly available, or unwilling to say no, people will draw a conclusion, often unconsciously: you're safe to use. Not because they're cruel, but because you've made it easy. In a world ruled by self-interest, that's all it takes. This is why Machiavelli famously said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." He wasn't promoting tyranny, he was offering clarity. Power stems from how you're perceived, and that perception begins with how you carry yourself. If you're always bending, always explaining, always accommodating, people may smile and thank you, but beneath the surface, they start to see you as someone they can shape. And once they believe that, respect fades. But when you walk with calm confidence, when your words are deliberate and your presence steady, people take notice. Not because they fear your cruelty, but because they respect your composure. This kind of strength doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't need to. It shows itself in restraint. Machiavelli advised, control your image by controlling your reactions. Because the more reactive you are, the easier you are to read. And the easier you are to read, the easier you are to manipulate. Just ask any poker player. People who overshare, who explode in anger, who expose every emotional wound, they hand over the blueprint for how to control them. So before you speak, pause. Before you respond, breathe. Before you share, think. Ask yourself, does this detail strengthen my position or weaken it? Am I revealing this out of trust? Or out of a need to be liked? If you're unsure, say nothing. Let silence do the talking. Machiavelli believed this. Those who are hard to predict become hard to control. Because if others can't read your next move, they can't prepare a response. That uncertainty is power. So don't just guard your time, guard your presence. Don't just set boundaries, cultivate mystique. Because in a world where everyone is trying to extract, influence, or gain, the person who controls their image controls the game. 4. Practice generosity in a measured way. Generosity is powerful when it's intentional. It can build trust, open doors, and deepen relationships. But as Machiavelli warns, unchecked generosity becomes a liability. Why? Because people don't just receive kindness. They adjust to it. The moment your giving becomes routine, it stops being a gift and starts being an expectation. And once something is expected, it's no longer appreciated. Machiavelli saw this clearly. He wrote that while generosity can win favor, it must be used wisely, not from guilt, not from impulse, and never from habit. Because if you're always the one helping, always the one giving without pause, you stop being seen as kind. You start being seen as a resource. And once people see you as a source, not a person, they begin to take you for granted. They won't remember your efforts. They'll resent the moment you don't give. That's the trap. So Machiavelli advised, let your generosity be strategic, not manipulative, not selfish, but measured. You give when it means something. You give on your terms. You give with discernment, not obligation. Because if you give too easily, too often, people won't see generosity as a reflection of strength. They'll see it as a weakness to exploit. So instead, be generous but unpredictable. Be kind but aware. Give but never drain yourself to prove a point. Think of it this way. If a king gave away gold every time someone asked, his kingdom wouldn't last. But if he gave at the right moment, in alliance, in strategy, in vision, his generosity would carry weight. It would mean something. So the next time you're about to offer your time, your money, or your energy, ask yourself, does this serve a purpose? Am I giving to build strength or to avoid guilt? Will this be valued or expected again and again? If the answer doesn't serve your long-term well-being, hold back. Because true generosity isn't about giving everything. It's about giving the right thing, at the right moment to the right person. That's when it becomes rare. That's when it becomes respected. That's when it becomes powerful. 5. Appear virtuous but be strategic. Of all Machiavelli's teachings, one stands out and is often misunderstood. It is better to appear virtuous than to actually be virtuous. At first glance, it sounds like manipulation, like he's telling us to fake it. But that's not the point. Machiavelli wasn't dismissing the value of goodness. He was revealing a hard truth. In a world full of watchers, judges, and competitors, virtue without strategy gets exploited. He wasn't saying don't be good. He was saying, protect your goodness. Don't lay it bare. Don't make it predictable. Don't let people weaponize it against you. Because when people know you'll always say yes, that you'll always forgive, always volunteer, always carry the extra weight, they stop seeing it as strength and start seeing it as submission. And that's when they take advantage. You've seen this in the workplace. You go above and beyond. You support everyone. You deliver. You don't complain. And you think surely they'll notice. But instead of rewarding you, they give you more to carry. More tasks. More expectations. But no recognition. No raise. No respect. Why? Because you were too open. Too available. Too easy to count on. And too easy to overlook. That's why Machiavelli would say, be virtuous but not naive. Be kind but not predictable. Be honest but guard your strategy. Let people see your character but not your entire plan. Learn the art of restraint. Before you speak, ask, does this person need to know this? Will sharing this increase my influence or reduce it? Am I being transparent out of strength or out of fear? Because in the end, the most powerful people are not the loudest, the busiest, or the most giving. They are the ones who move with clarity, speak with purpose, and never show their entire hand. Appear virtuous, but always be aware, because in a world that's always watching, the ones who win are the ones who master perception without ever losing themselves. 6. Keep your powers hidden. If Machiavelli cautioned against being too openly good, he also warned us against revealing too much strength. In The Prince, he wrote, "A prudent man should always follow in the footsteps of great men and imitate those who have been supreme." At first, it sounds like simple advice learned from the greats, but Machiavelli's deeper message is about strategy. He's not just telling us to study greatness. He's showing us how the greatest protected their power. And one of their best strategies, they never revealed their full hand. Machiavelli understood something timeless. Mystery is power. The more people know about your goals, your next moves, your vulnerabilities, the easier it is for them to control you. But when they're unsure of what you're capable of, or what you'll do next, they tread carefully. You gain advantage through unpredictability. So don't announce your ambitions. Don't advertise your every strength. Because the moment people fully understand you, they begin to calculate around you. In fact, the most powerful people are often underestimated. And that's a gift. When no one sees you coming, no one can stop you. Discretion becomes a shield, and silence, a weapon. In your career, in your relationships, in your personal life, keep a part of yourself reserved. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone needs to know your plans. Ask yourself, why are they asking? What do they stand to gain from knowing this? Is their curiosity rooted in care or control? Because sometimes people show interest just to extract information, influence, leverage. That's why you must stay guarded, not closed, but strategic. Be warm, but unreadable. Be confident, but selective. Speak less, but act with precision. When people don't know what you'll do next, they're forced to respect your silence. In the end, Machiavelli's message is this: never be completely readable. The less they know, the more they respect. And when you keep your depth hidden, your power multiplies. 7. Command respect, not likability. Machiavelli wasn't interested in being liked. He was interested in being effective. And here's what he saw. The desperate need to be liked is weakness in disguise. It makes people soft. It makes them say yes when they mean no. It makes them betray their own values just to keep the peace. And that's the fastest way to be overlooked, underestimated, and used. Because while being liked is comfortable, being respected is what creates impact. This ties to one of his most famous principles. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But don't misunderstand him. Machiavelli wasn't calling for cruelty. He wasn't glorifying tyranny. He was clarifying reality. Love is emotional. Love is inconsistent. Love fades when circumstances shift. But respect endures. You don't earn respect by pleasing everyone. You earn it by standing firm, by holding your line, by choosing truth over comfort. Think about the people you truly admire. Are they the ones who bend to every demand? Or the ones who have boundaries? Who lead not by being agreeable but by being unshakable? That's the essence of what Machiavelli taught. If you chase approval, you hand over your power. But if you command respect, people adjust to you. So how do you do it? You don't bluff. You build. You stay consistent. You say no when it matters. You let your actions speak for your standards. And when people realize that your kindness isn't endless, that your energy isn't free, and that your values don't bend under pressure, they begin to take you seriously. We've all been there, trying to be liked, to be accepted, to fit in. But the truth is, the more you chase it, the more invisible you become. So stop bending. Return to your core. Return to your discipline. Return to the version of you that respects yourself first. Because when you respect yourself, others will follow. When you stand tall, others raise their posture. And when you show that your kindness has limits, people finally start to listen. Machiavelli's message wasn't about ruling with fear. It was about walking with presence. Not needing to be liked because you know who you are, not begging for validation because your standards speak louder than approval. Respect lasts. Respect builds legacies. And in the end, it's not the charming one who wins. It's the one who can stand alone without needing applause. 8. Stay independent. In The Prince, Machiavelli gives a striking warning. He who builds on the people builds on the mud. In other words, if your strength relies on others emotionally, financially, socially, you're standing on unstable ground. The moment your foundation exists outside of yourself, you're exposed. Vulnerable. Controllable. Machiavelli's solution? Become self-sufficient. Build your life in a way that no one else holds the keys to your peace or power. That's where real strength begins, not in dominance over others, but in complete authority over yourself. This isn't just about financial independence, though that matters. It's deeper. It's about emotional, mental, and strategic independence. Because when you constantly look to others for validation, comfort, or direction, you give them leverage over your life. But when your confidence comes from within, when you know how to calm your own storms, when your purpose doesn't hinge on anyone's approval, no one can take that from you. That's why Machiavelli emphasized building yourself. Develop useful skills, sharpen your mind, strengthen your emotional core, because the less you need, the more powerful you become. And no, this doesn't mean becoming isolated or cold. It means being so whole that your connections are based on choice, not dependence. It means being so stable that no one can shake your foundation with their absence. Apply this to any part of life. If you're stuck in a job you hate but can't leave because you need the paycheck, you've handed away your power. If you rely on someone else for emotional balance, you've handed them the remote control to your mind. True power is the ability to walk away, and you can only do that when you don't need what they're offering. So if independence is where you struggle, start there. Ask, where am I most dependent? What fear is keeping me stuck? What skill, habit, or mindset do I need to develop to reclaim my freedom? If it's financial, start small. Learn a skill. Build a stream of income. Study those who did it with less. Because every hour invested in self-reliance pays you back in power. If it's emotional, dig deeper. Ask yourself why you feel incomplete without someone else. Then work on becoming the person you'd want to depend on internally. Don't see this as rejection of help. See it as insurance. Because when you're whole on your own, any support you receive becomes a bonus, not a crutch. Machiavelli's wisdom here is simple. The most dangerous person is the one who doesn't need you. And when you become that person, you're not just free, you're untouchable. You become solid like a fortress built on stone. That's what Machiavelli meant. True strength isn't given, it's built. And the more self-reliant you become, the more powerful, respected, and unshakable you are. If this message resonated with you, explore our full Stoic Mindset Mastery playlist, a collection of timeless wisdom to help you build a life rooted in strength, clarity, and strategy. And if you're serious about mastering your mind, subscribe for more powerful insights drawn from the greatest thinkers in history. Thanks for watching, and remember, in a world that rewards appearances, those who lead with depth, discipline, and discernment always stand above the rest.